All right, I'm stumbling around out here in the garage while I wait for some parts for Rocky Mountain for the other set of wheels over here, which is taking longer than normal. Usually, those guys get me stuff in about a day, and I've been sitting here for a week plus now, waiting for a brake line. Probably the post office's fault more than theirs. Who knows? But anyway, I did some videos earlier in the year about some stuff I added to this 701, and now that it's later in the fall, and I've been riding it all summer, all over the country, as a matter of fact, I can talk about what's worked and what didn't, and what I think of the bike, because it's pretty much in the state where I think it's going to stay, other than maybe a seat. The seat's not bad. I think I'm more tolerant to it than other folks. I can ride this bike for about, if I'm just riding on roads where I'm sitting most of the time, 3, 4 hours before I just feel like I'm completely done and my butt's gone numb. So a different seat would probably help with that. But at this point, I haven't been putting that much more saddle time on it. And, if I ride 4 hours and take a break for an hour, I'm good for another two, three, before it starts to really get bad again. Uh, Bike's been great. I'm not going to try to turn this into a review or comparison or anything. I can't really compare it to a lot of the newer bikes out there. The old 500 over there is a 2012, and I would not necessarily compare these two. I think they have a different purpose. That one, even though it has lights and license plate and turn signals and everything, is very much a dirt bike that happens to be legal for the street. This is solidly a dual sport. So that guy is made to be good at off road, and it just so happens you're allowed to have it on pavement. This is meant to be okay at both. I think is a fair way to word it. Being a dual sport, that's exactly what it's designed for. It is meant to be rideable on the pavement and rideable in the dirt, and equally bad at both. Is That's how a dual sport is, right? It's always a compromise. I do not think bad is a good word to say about either one, but it's it it will work as well as you can ride in the dirt. I think is a very good way to word that. It's not a light bike, fueled up and everything. I don't know what it weighs, 340 pounds or so, probably, maybe a little more than that now that I've added some crap to it and put a toolkit in there and stuff. But certainly not. I don't know what the 500 weighs. It's under 300, between 350 and or 250 and 300 somewhere. Just a much lighter bike. So you're fighting the weight a little bit off road, but like I said, there's nothing there's nothing I tried to do with this bike that I felt like I couldn't do because of the bike. If I was struggling somewhere, it was me. I took a big road trip this summer, loaded the bike in the camper with the family, and we went all over the country. I was lucky enough, I got to ride in the Black Hills in South Dakota. I got to ride in western Montana, rode around in southwest Utah, and in Colorado, all in the span of about a month. So, bike did great in all of those conditions. It involved, kind of rocky, dusty trails in the Black Hills. Montana was pretty similar. Got in some a little bit, not super muddy conditions like we get over here east, but there was some mud over there, and it did fine in that. I will not lie, I struggled in the sand in Utah. I was in a place called Sand Hollow that is just a bunch of sand. It's, there's dunes and that kind of stuff there. I was able to get the bike around in the sand. Somebody better at riding than me probably could have done it much better. I didn't feel like the bike couldn't do anything. I just felt like, man, I wish this thing weighed 100 pounds lighter most of the time, but it did it. I mean, I was out in some deep, just that really fine kind of, I don't even know how to describe their sand out there, just that sort of really fine, dusty sand. And as long as you stayed on the gas and kept the front end light, the bike was able to do it. It was not fun picking this thing up, and I didn't do it very often, but I did it because I was there and I wanted to, and it did great. Then I got onto some of the kind of more, sort of rocky trails in the area. A place called Warner Valley. I think, which was very near Sand Hollow. Was a really cool place to go ride. I really enjoyed it. We just happened to be there because it was close to the Grand Canyon, Zion National Park, and a couple other things we wanted to see. But it turned out to be an amazing place to go ride. I think uh, um, South Dakota and the Black Hills and Southwest Utah there were my favorite places to ride. Out of everywhere we went. Colorado was nice. It's got the nice views and stuff, but those two just purely for the riding were amazing. I loved it. Anyway, bike did great at all of it. No complaints at all. I have ridden XR 650s. I've ridden DR 650s. I've ridden KLR 650s. I've even ridden the old Yamaha XT 600s that they don't make anymore. Comparing to those bikes, I'm not going to get into reliability. I haven't had this long enough. We all know where that is, right? The Japanese bikes are the Japanese bikes. They're probably more reliable than this thing, but man, the performance difference is real. Suspension is better. The engine is better. When you're actually riding the bike, everything is better about this machine than those ones. That's all I'm going to say. People argue about it. I'm not trying to start a fight, but is what it is, man. DRZ 400. I've been on one of those too. Still take this over all of them any day of the week. The way I look at it, I really appreciate that extra power. You don't need it off road, but man, is it fun on the pavement when you're getting to the trail. Yeah, you open this thing up and she just goes. It'll zip down the highway 75, 80 miles an hour just fine without struggling even one bit. The only thing that struggles is me because of all the wind. But the bike doesn't mind it at all. So, and all that, and it does great off road too. It does not compare to any other big single cylinder bike you can buy today, as far as I'm concerned. Maybe there's one I don't know about, but love it. Great performing machine. Has not left me stranded. I don't know how many miles are on it now. Probably not a ton. Like I said, I did mostly dirt riding, so um, the miles don't rack up, but the hours do. So, far as what I changed on this bike, if you gave me one today and said I had to go take it trail riding and I could only change one thing about it, I'd change the tires because it comes with a set of TKC 80s, and I'm not going to make a tire video out of this, but those things suck off road. They're fine on dirt roads. They are terrible on trails. They've got really squishy rubber on them, so it's easy to get a puncture on them. The tread is not good for anything other than a dirt road. If you're just riding dirt roads and pavement, they're great. They're not loud. They're sticky on the road. They do wear out kind of fast, but if you're actually getting on trails, they're awful. I've got, they're still sitting in the corner over here. They got about 200 miles on them because I knew that I was not going to keep those tires out of the gate. Other than that, I added protection items to it and a couple conveniences. So we'll go through them all here. First things first, the tires. I switched to the tried and true Pirelli MT21 in the front, Dunlop 606 in the back. They work great. I don't need to talk about it. Everybody knows about that. I added rim locks to it. It didn't come with them. Usually I try to get the Ultralight Motion Pro rim locks. I could not find them in stock anywhere. Hopefully they still make those things and are just in between runs or something. So I had to use the heavier ones. If you put rim locks on anything, be sure to balance them. All I do, I don't with a knobby tire, I don't bother putting it on a balance stand. I weigh the rim lock before it goes on, and then I put that much weight on the opposite side of the wheel. So the front was like 4 ounces and the back is 5 1/4 or something. Don't quote me on that because I'm pulling it out of my rear end, but it's a lot of weight. Yeah, you can see there's the rim lock, and this is the front wheel, so it's a little smaller. That's a lot of weight on there, but it works. A lot of people complain that these big single cylinder bikes, even the 500s too, vibrate a lot. I've stood beside people that complain, say stuff like, oh yeah, I got one of those. I don't like it because it vibrates too much. Yada, yada. I've tried to do everything. And then you look down and they've got a rim lock on there and they haven't balanced it out. You can't put 4 ounces on one side of your wheel and nothing to balance it and expect it to not feel like it's vibrating when you're riding down the road. I'm surprised you don't see, people doing that with the wheels hopping up and down because they're so out of balance. So run your rim lock so you can lower the pressure, but balance them out. It'll make your life better. Run these seal savers on everything. I've had a set of them on a KTM 1090 since it was brand new, and I've never had to change the fork seals, and it gets dirty. You can see this bike. This bike's dirty. And the end of the year, I take them off of everything, unless I'm in really goop mud, then I do it more often. But, just normal kind of dual sportish and trail riding, I take the things off, hose them off, let them dry, put them back on. And then you don't have to change fork seals. This is a 3D printed ABS sensor protector doodad. That's the sensor back there, and this just sits on top of it. I found it on printables.com, and I printed one out of ABS plastic because it's a little bit stronger. It's been fine. That hasn't actually been off-road much. I just found it recently, but I put it on there and I gave it a kick test, and it seems fine. More 3D printed stuff. There's some engine case covers. I forget where I got those, but I had to pay for the files. Files were about $5, and I printed them out of PA carbon fiber filament. Those have been on the bike long enough to have been dropped on several times. I've just got them on there with some 3M tape. They've held up great. So considering that's expensive filament, it might have cost me $5 to make 2 of those, plus the files, 10. If I break one set a year, that's still a hell of a lot cheaper than paying $100 for set engine covers. Similar thing in the rear, protects the ABS sensor in the wire, also from printables. Radiator guard, I went with the Flatlands Racing Guard because it's got a big aluminum guard up front covering the whole radiator. And then I'm not taking the shroud off to show you, but it covers the whole side, and then there's big heavy brackets down here. You do lose a toolkit on the left side, but it fully covers the radiator, where commonly what you see on these bikes are kind of the more crash guard style. That's just a hoop that covers a little bit up here. I was worried about that. It would probably protect you if you fell on like a smooth dirt road or something. But if there was a rock or a log or something in exactly the right place, it could very easily go right through there, up above or below or whatever. And then you're losing important juices out in the middle of nowhere. So I like this a lot. It's not going to protect the bodywork. I don't care. I'm more worried about keeping that juice. AXP skid plate works great. It was a bear to get on there, but after it's been there for a little while now, it's easy to come on and off. These foot pegs are about an inch lower, inch 3/4, something like that, than the stock foot pegs. They came from a place called kit690.com. It's a British outfit. I had never heard of them before. I found them because I was just looking for the cheapest lowered pegs I could find. And I don't remember how much these were, but they were the cheapest. And cheap doesn't mean bad quality. I mean, these are very nicely put together. You can see there's nice welds on there. They've held up fine. No arguments, no complaints. I appreciate the bigger size, or the extra width, the extra length. Because the foot peg is lowered, I had to put this little brake tip on here. I don't remember who makes that, but I got it from Rocky Mountain for $50 or so. Now I can have the pedal level with the foot peg, and then you've got this little step here for when you're standing up. Nice side effect of having the lower pegs. For one thing, when I'm sitting, I can straighten my legs out more without having to put a taller seat on. But also when I'm standing now, I can get my knees into the seat to grip the bike a little bit, where before it was high enough I was catching this kind of curved part of the seat, and it was just harder to get my knees in there. So helped around on all fronts. If you're less than, I think I'm about 6 foot, maybe you won't need that, but worked well for me. Adventure spec luggage jobby on here works really well. I got this for 2 reasons. For one thing, I wanted to be able to carry a pint-sized passenger whose feet were too short to get to the OEM passenger pegs. So we put some cheap Amazon foot pegs on there, just drilled a hole and hung them on. The other reason, though, is, well, for one thing, you can hang some shit on here. But the other reason is because it sort of covers the gas tank over here and gives it a little protection without sticking out overly far. You know, I didn't really like the luggage racks with the big hoops on them. I'm never going to put hard luggage on this bike. So those were perfect for me. And it was not horribly expensive. I forget how much they cost, but they weren't bad. These Wolfman bags I've had forever. Everybody knows Wolfman. They make good stuff. Wings exhaust. I did not put that on there because I wanted the bike to be loud or because I didn't like the way it ran. I put it on there because everybody, you go read about it. These things run lean and very hot when they're new. It's because there's a catalytic converter in the OEM muffler. So I'm sure it saved. I don't know how much lighter this is than OEM. It's definitely lighter. It is not louder. I bought the extra silent insert for it, and it sounds different, but it does not sound any noisier than stock, which is exactly what I want. I don't like loud motorcycles. I had this heat shield laying around. I think that probably is that Wolfman. Yeah, it probably came with the Wolfman bags when I bought them, and I just hadn't used it. So put it on because I had it. The bags do sit a little bit close the way I have them on here. Let's see what else. Oh yeah. We put let's get it popped open here. There we go. I put the Raid Garage intake in here. Less because I thought it needed a different intake and more because I like having a bunch of storage under there. With the two, between the intake and the muffler, I was worried it may be running way too lean after changing those. You can buy the fueling dongles from Rottweiler for $30 or whatever they cost. I did not do that. I borrowed a dongle from a buddy of mine who has a 690 and measured the resistance, and I stuck a resistor in the connector where the dongle would normally go, and it works great. Has been working since the bike had probably about 300 miles on it was when I changed all that stuff. So I think I did a video on that. It was a bad video, but it'll show you how to do it. You basically just measure the resistance on the dongle and put it in there. And I don't remember what it was, but it was in the video. Let's see, handguards, put some Acer B, Acer, I don't know. I don't think there's a lot of difference in all these. I like Acer Bs. I've just always had them on stuff and never had any trouble. These ones I did not tighten down all the way when I started, my fault. And I dropped the bike in Colorado near Silverton, somewhere. I don't remember which. I was in one of the mountain passes. And broke I had a shorter lever that I picked up when I bought the bike. It was from a Husqvarna, like one of their motocross models. I think come with a 2-finger lever instead of a 4-finger lever. But the handguards would have worked fine if I tightened them down. You know, the guard didn't break. It moved out of the way, and that was my fault. So that was another thing I changed, was the shorter lever. I have no issue at all pulling this lever with 1 finger. 2 fingers, it is very easy. Don't even have to try. And it just, you know, I've got not small hands. So when I'm working the clutch, I'm bopping my fingers if I have a full length lever. So I need to go get another shorty to put on there. Oh yeah, the turn signals suck, but that's what you expect for any new bike. I'm gonna put something shorter on there. This one actually broke. I had to glue it together at a campsite in Ouray, Colorado, I think. Actually, I broke that same time I broke the lever, but they actually glued back together pretty easy. I put some epoxy in there and did her up. It was fine. Double take mirrors. Everybody knows what double take mirrors are. They work very nicely. That's a Hondo Garage phone mount that I actually just put on there a couple days ago. That has not been on the bike long enough for me to talk about how well it works beyond just saying it's a very nicely put together piece of kit. I like it, no complaints. This is a moto-minded stout mount. I had to look up what it was because I had this laying around. It was gonna go on some other bike. I don't know which one. Before I bought this, and ended up on here instead. This just bolts on top of your clamps. Kind of hard to see, but there's bolts under here, and then it's got sort of its own mount that sits on top. These little guys, and then you can bolt your plate on here, and the plate has what do they call it? The amps pattern holes in it, so you can put your GPS up there. I use a Garmin Tread GPS, which I like for most navigation. I still keep the phone mount on here. I actually for a lot of trail riding, I like Onyx off road a little bit better, and I'm not pitching either one. I'm not sponsored by anybody. The Garmin device itself works better. I've tried all the CarPlay screens and sticking an old phone on the bars and everything else. The Garmin hardware is better than all those. The screen works in the sun. It works when it's wet. It works when it's dirty. It just works all the time. But the maps are better if you're running Onyx on your phone, especially for like the ORV trails. If it's published roads, the Garmin's great, which was most of what I've been doing. They're unmaintained roads, but most of the places I've been are actual roads. But when you actually get into, on like a trail system, I was doing a lot of trail riding in the Black Hills and in Utah. There's a lot of trails people have created that they put into Onyx that does not make it into Garmin's maps. So, it'd be nice if you could do both of those things on one device. But I don't know. No regrets. The Garmin was expensive, but I use it a lot. I actually use it driving in the car quite a bit too. It's got a neat feature where if you're pulling, say, a trailer that's tall, I can say, all right, my trailer's 10 foot high, and do me a favor, don't take me down any roads that have a low bridge, and it works very well for that. And it works when you don't have a cell connection too, which is a plus. I know Onyx would work that way, but if you're relying on like Google Maps and trying to get into some out of the way places, you may be disappointed. That's everything about the bike. Again, I have no complaints about it. I'm trying to think what else. I did not change the gearing at all, and I didn't have any complaints. You got to give it the beans a little bit when you're on maybe like some tighter trails, or it doesn't kind of lug really well at low RPMs. Like the 500 over here, I bought this used. Somebody worked on it. I don't know what the heck they did. This bike will idle and dig a hole in the ground before it'll stall. It's fantastic for that, but it's a dirt bike. This is dual sport. That bike will go 80 miles an hour, but it is absolutely screaming when you get there, and this guy's barely breathing hard. So when you're going, when you're on a slow technical spot, you gotta keep the engine up in the rev range where it's happy. But I'm running stock sprockets too, so maybe if I geared it a little bit lower, it would be better. I have a 1/2 smaller front sprocket. I didn't bother to put on this bike because it's done everything I've asked it to. I haven't minded at all the way it is. It's been really great. It hasn't let me down, and it's if you're talking about a 650-ish cc thumper that you can buy today, I don't think there's a better performing one out there. I'm not an expert. I'm not a pro rider, but you ride this and then you go ride like a DR 650. It's night and day. It's a wonderful bike. I love it.